Hello, I'd like to welcome you to the first episode of Community Connectors. My name is John Kerber, and I'll be your host for this episode. The goal of Community Connectors is to learn what it takes to run a thriving community space in the modern era. So if you run a library, or a park, or a museum, or a co-working space, or a church, or a coffee shop, or a makerspace, if you run a place where people at least go in part to be a part of the community, this show is for you. We're going to have some interviews with people running different community centers. We're going to ask them what's working and what's not. We're going to try and share some best practices of what we're hearing. All of this is to help you, the viewer, learn what it's really like to run a successful community space today. Things have changed over the last couple of years, so we're trying to get this up-to-date information out there. So why have a show about the people who run community spaces? It's really simple. Almost everyone likes to visit parks or libraries or go to a coffee shop, but it is a unique kind of person that actually decides to run a space that is really for the benefit of others. And we're not seeing a lot of shows out there really focused on helping the people who run these places. Now, my background is that in addition to running a startup called WhoFi, a few years ago, I ran a co-working space for several years. And I've lived through some of these struggles of running a community space, but I also see the people who are doing it well, and quite frankly, doing it so much better than I did. And it's not as obvious to make a successful community center as a lot of people might think. And that's where Community Connectors came from. So the goal of this is really to help those thinking about running a community center or already running a community space to really help you succeed in whatever your goals might be with it. Our first guest for Community Connectors is Lenah Oltman. Lenah is the director of the Rhinebeck Public Library in Iowa. I think she's got a very interesting story to tell that other library directors and also other community space leaders in general are going to want to hear. I hope you enjoy this first interview with Lenah. If you'd like to hear other episodes, then on YouTube to be notified when new episodes come out, please like and subscribe to our channel. If you're listening to this on the podcast, then please follow us on Spotify or Apple. Thank you so much for joining us for our first episode of Community Connectors. Welcome, Lenah. Really appreciate you being here for the kickoff first episode of Community Connectors. So Lenah, could you just tell everyone about yourself a little bit? So, where you work and kind of what you're doing. Go for it, Lenah.
I am Lenah Oltman, and I get to be a library director at the Rhinebeck Public Library. I get asked, when did you know you wanted to work in a library?
Yeah.
And for me, it was one of those aha moments. Sixth grade, I was in our middle school library, and it was amazing and huge because, again, I was in sixth grade,
Yeah.
and I read Double Blue. And if you don't know what that means, it's because we had this lovely thing called AR, and
Yeah.
everybody had to be in reading levels. And Double Blue meant the entire library was
Right.
something I could read. Nothing was out of my reach. And so it was a very big deal to me.
Yeah.
And then I realized, hey, wait a minute. The librarian gets access all the time. And I
Yeah.
thought, that's it. That's what I want to be. I want to be a librarian who
It's
gets to be in the libraries all day, all the time, and no one tells them what they can read.
yeah.
And then I also realized there's only one. So I got a little intimidated, like, wait a minute, there's only one in each school library. Didn't even think about public libraries at the time. But
Yeah. Well,
so how
and
did I get started? Sixth grade.
yeah.
Um,
And how long have you been the director at Rhinebeck Public Library?
so I was before I was the director, I started in 22 as the director. I was
Okay.
actually a programming librarian.
Okay.
I did programming for all ages and did outreach at another library.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, different than Rhinebeck is where you
Yes.
started.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Got it. And for the people who don't know what a programming librarian is, can you just talk a little bit about that role as well, and kind of
Yeah.
what you did there before you became the director who's kind of in charge overall of the library? So.
Yeah. So I made sure that there was programming for all ages. And the way the state library breaks up the brackets for ages is ages 0 to 5, 6 to 11, 12 to 18, and 18 plus or 19 plus.
Mhm.
So adult programming. And so I made sure that in that library, we're always collecting data and seeing, okay, we put out this many programs. Are we having a good turnout? Where's our gap? And then you compare it to the circulations. Okay, we're not having a lot of books in ages 12 to 18 checked out. Why is that? And at that library, I had found, well, we don't have a teen space. We don't have teen programming. So,
Yep.
of course, so at that one, we started a teen advisory board and started having teens create their own programming. And it was incredible to watch these kids grow into leadership. So,
Yeah.
programming, librarian, meaning it's my job to make sure it's happening
Yeah.
for all ages and nobody is not having a space or place in the library.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, that's great. Well, and I heard your story. I think you were speaking with Ashley on our team, and I kind of heard that you had made these drastic changes to the programming, and so like the events and kind of the what's happening at the library over the course of about a year or 18 months. I wasn't quite sure, and
Yeah.
I thought it was such a fascinating story, and so I was just wondering, could you talk a little bit about what were the changes that you made? Kind of when did you implement them? And then what was the impact? And could you just talk a little bit about that, Lenah?
So that was when I got hired as the director in Rhinebeck. It was
Okay.
a different role. Not gonna lie, I was very nervous,
Yeah.
but it was the right move for me. Used a lot of that structure side and that energy side into one role. Well, I started at the Rhinebeck Public Library and I was like, okay, let's look at your programming calendar. And they had a strong story time, and that was it. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, we don't have a calendar. And I said, well, where do you put how do people know when to come?
Yeah.
Story times every Tuesday at 10 a.m. No one has to remember it.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, um, what else? We don't really have a budget. And I said, well, how much is my budget yearly for that? There was no line item
Yeah.
for programming at all.
Yep.
Really great collection of books, everything. And they had people coming in. 10 people coming in a day was just awesome.
Yep.
That's where they were at. And I said, well, um, you hired a programming librarian.
Yeah.
And I do programming and outreach. It's my passion. It just comes naturally. So I had to get the funding.
Yep.
So it's easier to get funding when you're doing something, like when you already have a product. I mean, check out Shark Tank. They want to see results first before they
Yep.
invest.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't have that option, and I knew I needed to get the funding. So I started looking at grants. I applied for the Helen Guernsey grant,
Hmm.
and that one you have to do an interview, and they were like, "Do you ever sleep?" As I'm telling them all the things I'm going to do, all
Yeah.
the things I've already done, and had it all laid out. And they're like, "Well, why is your city not already funding this?" And I said, well, because it hasn't been happening yet. I am new, and I happen to know that if you fund me and let me get this going,
Yeah.
that I will get people excited and then they will be on board.
Yeah.
And they took a chance on me. They gave me $7,800 that
Yep.
year
Great.
to fund my programming for all ages. And we did. We started doing baby STEM for ages 0 to 5, which was messy and fun. And we do
Yeah.
toddler time, which is also messy and fun. We just started a Lego club for ages 6 to 11, and that was individual challenges, group challenges, and partner challenges, teaching kids communication, leadership. They're getting so much more than just play. And of course, we have books to go with it because that's
Yeah.
what we're leading you to. And
Sure.
to get you to dream and imagine and do more. It's just we're the start. And so we made those as staples for our teens. We had teen time.
Hmm.
Teens do not want you to tell them what to do, but
Yeah.
also they want you to have something for them to do.
Right. Right. Makes
You
sense.
have to you have to know your audience. And so for our kids, our teens, they wanted something different. And they wanted it to be open to almost like a vote. And so we would have teen time. We had anime night. We had perler beads where they just make things out of perler beads. We had watercolor paintings where I could do a step by step or they could make their own. They want that flexibility and learning about how to work with our teens. Um, that was important.
Yeah.
Adults, they're honestly my hardest one because you got to know their schedule. We're a town of 1,600, so you
Yeah.
really do have to know when the soccer games are,
Yes. Yes.
depending on the age group of what you want. So we used that funding that year to build all of these. And then with the caveat of going to our city council saying, as they're just like, wow, this is really great. You had 300 people at your kickoff for the summer reading program.
Yeah.
And I said, yes, that was a lot of people in our building.
Yeah, can you talk about that? Because I think that's what I heard was like the number
Oh,
to where I think it was the programming before you started, and then the number of
yeah,
programs you literally did within the next year or so. Could you talk a little bit about that? So,
absolutely. Yes. Thankfully, my staff has stayed with me and they have enthusiasm and had fun
yeah.
because so in the first year, well, the very first year, they had 45 programs.
Okay.
And then when I came on and had about half a year of that data, we had 109 programs.
Yep.
And then the very next year, we had 284
Wow.
programs. But
Yeah.
here's the thing that happened. So we had 8,000 people, 8,159 through our door
Yep.
with a library that didn't do programming. I mean, other than the story time.
Sure.
That very next year, we had 14,462 people
Yeah.
through our door.
And
Again, this is a town of 1,600 people.
yeah.
And so for me, it was very great. It was
Yeah.
shocking, but it was also overwhelming. It was like, okay, they are ready. This is what they're looking for. This is what they want.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's what I
yeah.
thought was so I mean, you went from 50 to I believe you said 289 programs, is that right? And
So yeah, yeah.
and then
The 1 year, yeah, 45 to
oh 40.
109 because you got about half a year's data when we
Okay.
started, and then to 284. And then last year
284. Yeah.
was 365 programs. So I
365
said, see,
programs. Yeah.
we're having a program a day and we're closed a day of the week. How do librarians do it?
Right, right. And here's the other side of it because I was kind of wondering, so that's the programming. So, you're having more programs and so people are coming in for programs, but how did it impact other parts of the library? What were the impacts, not just the people showing up for the programs, but also and were there any? I mean, I would imagine maybe that impacts book checkouts or something, but maybe not. So
Mhm.
what was kind of the impact on the other aspects of the library when you're doing so much more programming?
So we had 13,000 book checkouts before we started doing the programs,
Okay.
like all of the programming.
Yeah.
It's 17,391. So
Yeah.
is it leading to literacy? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in all areas, because it's not just our demographics before we had programming was the three families for the story time that came consistently.
Yeah.
And around 60s to 80s on up was our
Yeah.
age groups that we had. And now we're not just seeing kids checking out books and parents checking out 20 books at a time for their kids
Yeah.
because they're participating in a reading challenge that
Yep.
they heard about at summer reading program or some like we have this weekend we have or next weekend we have what's called excellent events where
Yep.
we collaborate with another community entity that's putting on a egg hunt and a breakfast and
Yeah.
we are the filler time in between so that families can move between the breakfast before the egg hunt so that they don't have to go home and have kids who are stir crazy.
Yeah. Right.
So we'll have about, if I had to guess, 400 people there coming in and out and navigating their day. And at that time, when we're doing our prizes or giveaways, we'll give things about the library so that we build that bridge. We plant that seed so they come back. We've also seen that with this, so if you have kids programming,
Yeah.
you usually have parents.
Yeah.
So the parents, and suddenly we had the ages 20, 30s, 40s coming into our library, and with our shelf marketing by having our books on display and having tags about what they are. Oh, I saw this book online.
Yeah.
You guys have it here. This is a newer book. Well, yeah, we're not a museum, we're a library.
Right.
And so just seeing that, you know, did we, when we were planning baby STEM, were we thinking about checking out the latest Frida McFadden to mom on the way out, or checking out Baldacci to dad? No, but that's what happened. They got the books for the kids, they got the books for the parents, and it's being modeled in the home. So they're
Yeah.
creating this whole reading culture that we're able to help nurture.
And that's amazing. And could you talk a little bit too about how, you went from I know I'm going to mix up these numbers, but like 45 programs before you
Yeah.
started to then I believe you said 284 and then working towards 300 now. Was there any changes you made towards promoting the programs? Because it's one thing to have quite a few programs, but it's another thing for people to actually know about them and show up. And so were there any changes, or was it word of mouth? Kind of how did people start coming through the door once you started having more programs?
So the hat that I had before I was a programming librarian is I was in marketing and sales.
Okay.
And so marketing matters very much to me.
Yep.
I understand you can have the best program. You can put all the hours of work, but if no one knows about it, it's not going to happen. And so that's when I started taking over. In Rhinebeck, their social media also wasn't utilized very much.
Sure.
And so I hopped on there and did a makeover. We started promoting books, promoting programming, creating. I use Canva a lot. It is
Hmm.
very versatile once you get comfortable with it. And um, I can turn it into anything. I can make my flyers, my physical flyers, my digital flyers. I can take, we got donated hand sanitizers by the box full.
Yeah.
Like when it was after, we made and survived 2020 and the years that came,
Yeah.
people had extra hand sanitizers. So they donated us, I think it was like 80 bottles of hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
Well, we had some study sessions at the library where we would give kids who came in to study, we called them serene study sessions. We would
Hmm.
give them a snack and we promised them a quiet atmosphere. We put on some music and we rewarded them for coming in and using their time wisely.
Yeah.
And so I promoted that program. I took Canva, made it into stickers, and took
Yeah.
ordinary sanitizer bottles, dropped them off at the school, dropped them off
Oh,
at the
okay.
daycares,
Yeah.
and had them as giveaways at the back to school night. That was part of our giveaways. And we had cookies. We put on there, smart cookies go to the
Yeah.
library. So with programming, when I know I have a program coming up, it's really nice with WhoFi. I can
Hmm.
quickly input and kind of like a save the date, and people can see that on our website.
Yeah.
And so I can plug all those in before I'm ready to really flesh it out. So like maybe I haven't fully made my marketing materials. I haven't made my flyer. I haven't my digital flyer or printed them.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of a nice start, and whether
Yeah.
it needs registration or not.
Hmm.
And then we usually print flyers and have them out on our door and hang them up at local businesses and go around. So that's number one.
Yeah.
We like to make bookmarks and I call them fridge size magnets. They're like postcard size so that people can grab them, stick them on their fridge.
Yep.
And they're small, they're not a big sheet of paper. And then social media. I
Yeah.
mean, that's if you have a local group, like a mom's group, a parents group, a town group. I feel like a lot of small towns, especially, have like ours is called In the Loop.
Yeah. Like the
where people
town
communicate.
page kind of thing, or
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
and they update. That is fabulous for libraries and
yeah,
programming because then they all see it, they share it. They're like, "Oh, I needed that reminder," because people are busy. They need
yeah,
reminders. You can't tell them at the beginning of the month and hope that they'll come. They won't, and then they'll be sad that they
yeah.
didn't.
Well, and so just if I'm hearing you correctly, I mean, I'm hearing that you're doing social media, so it sound like Facebook, and not just kind of the library's Facebook page, but also having things on like the town's Facebook
Yes,
page, if there's something like that. And then you're also talking about very much kind of on the ground in the town type of marketing as well, which is
yeah,
interacting with the school, and so hand sanitizers that also kind of
yeah,
say like when there's a program, and then you're talking about, I think you said bookmarks that do they also have some of the events or
yes,
things? So yeah, and
yep.
then you're also saying you said one other place that I thought was, what did you say? There was another place that you were dropping things off, or maybe I misheard it.
I mean, I always drop so daycares, because then
Daycares.
they can hand and put it in the little backpacks or diaper bags of the kiddos, depending on what group I'm marketing. That's what
Yeah,
changes. I also drop things off to the churches.
yeah,
Churches have email for people, so sometimes it'll be just an email. Depends
yeah.
on what it is and where it will get traction.
Yeah, I mean that's great, and it's funny because I didn't know exactly the whole story, and so I was like, oh, they doubled programming, that kind of had an impact. But we're also kind of hearing like a whole library marketing almost kind of plan here, which is great, which is great. So thank you. And actually, I wanted to go back to that grant. Could you talk a little bit more about that grant that you had that gave you some of the funds here to start some of this and set some of this in motion? Was that a grant by the state? Is that a federal grant? Kind of what is that grant that you actually applied for
That
the
was a
city?
private grant.
Oh,
It's
private
the
grant.
Max and Helen Guernsey Foundation,
Yeah.
Grant Foundation. And we because a part of with this job, so I don't live in Rhinebeck, I live a town away. And
Mhm.
again, small town that matters because that I'm the new guy, even though I'm like, I'm in the same county.
Yep.
But I'm the new guy, so I had to start building those relationships. And so I started finding out, okay, what other committees do you have? What other boards do you have in this town that meet? And I found that the Community Development Board was the one that made the most sense for me to join because it's mutually beneficial relationships. I can help you with references. I can help you. Turned out with them, they needed a lot of help with marketing. I can help build those community bridges.
Yeah.
And so I joined that. And in that, I met several other business professionals. And one of them was a grant writer. And
Okay.
so she was like,
Yeah.
hey, this grant is coming up. I can help you with it. And I was like, okay. She goes, what's your goals? What are you looking for? And I said, I don't think anyone will fund such a basic, what I think is a basic necessity. A library, a community public library should have programming.
Yeah.
That should be a staple that is happening no matter what. And so she's like, well, I mean, all you can do is try. And so I did. I filled it out. I told them, and what I'm telling you now is if you give it to me, I will make it happen. Once people realize what they're missing, once they realize that they could have a purpose and a place at our library, because you can't be surprised if you don't have teens in the library, if you don't have teen programming.
Yeah.
If you walk into somewhere new, what the first thing you do is you're looking for signage because what you're looking for is how to do it right because you don't want to be wrong. Nobody wants to enter anywhere and get it wrong.
Yeah.
And so when you create programming, it means that you're already right because on the programming, we're saying this is for teens. So just by being who you are, the age that you already belong. I'll tell you the rest. I'll tell you whatever else you need to succeed, but you qualify in our library at this time because you fit the parameters of this program. And that's really what programming. So I explained that to them and like I said, they were a great panel. The main thing like I said, I laughed because they asked me if I had a cot, and I just thought, I'm a dreamer. And if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna go big. And it manifested in we had that funding, and then and at the time, our budget, our city was giving, and I'm going to guess because I do not have it pulled up in front of me. Um, Our city was giving us at the time, well, I can tell you our overall budget. Our overall budget with funding from all sources was $98,000. And
Yep.
that had no money
Yep.
for programming. And you have a business, you
Yep.
try to keep a building open that has
Yeah.
2 stories, 5 staff, and is open 6 out of 7 days and
Yep.
over 40 hours a week for $98,000.
Yeah. Electricity becomes a bigger line item than you think under those
Right?
conditions, right?
It's
Yep.
that was just to keep the building open.
Yep.
And then at the time, the circulations were 13,000. So people were still checking out books. So I
Yeah.
have to have books and I have to have new books. So it
Yeah.
was a very tight budget. And now we are looking at, well, I can tell you the next year. So they gave us 98,000 that very following year. So I was given $78,000 for the grant.
Yep.
Our city gave us
7,800, right?
124,000.
Did you say, oh,
Yes,
7,800 for the grant? Yeah. Oh, please
the
go.
grant was 7,800.
Okay.
Once the city saw that year
Yeah.
and what we had done, they didn't just give us 7,800. We went from $98,000 to no, it was $122,000.
Nice.
They were like,
Nice.
nope, whatever you're doing, it's gonna work. And they gave us more than we needed, which was and
Yeah.
now they have given us 165,000
Yeah.
because they saw that when they invested in the library, they were actually investing in other boards because we collaborate with the Community Enrichment Center that's across the street. We collaborate with the Park Board. We collaborate with the Community Development Board. We collaborate and send people to local businesses because we
Yeah.
have a story time called Read All Around Rhinebeck.
Yeah.
And that one, it's my favorite.
Yeah.
That one is where in the summer reading program, we get a hold of 5 different entities in the town. So, like one year we did the post office, the local ice cream shop, the pharmacy,
Yeah.
the fire department. We've done so many. We've done a grocery store, and we actually we take, there's usually about 80 people, and we go to that business or to that place, and we take a tour and we learn how does the local pharmacy work.
Yeah.
And the owners are the one who run it, or the workers, the people who work there, are the ones who give the tour, and then they'll read a book, and then we match an incentive to give to the people that come. So if the coffee shop says, okay, we will give everybody $1 off their drink.
Sure.
Then we say, okay, we'll match you. They'll get $2 off their drink.
Okay.
If the pharmacy did a percentage, we matched it. The ice cream shop gave
Yeah.
every kid a scoop of ice cream of whatever they wanted. And then we just gave them a financial donation to match what they gave away. So
Yeah.
it
And,
grows. When you invest in community, it comes back tenfold.
and that's what I was. Could you talk a little bit about, working with kind of other local community spaces, businesses, et cetera, that, are people reluctant to it? Are they excited for it? You mentioned kind of offers and things like that. And of course, how was the first one, right? Because sometimes once something works, then it's easier to get, the next person
Yes.
becomes interested. But trying to get that first local business to partner with your library, could you talk a little bit about that? What was kind of, or was there already a relationship, or just how did that go?
Yeah, I was doing shiny. I
Yeah.
didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
Um, except for the 5 board members that hired me. And
Yeah.
um, I got kind of lucky because when I was working in Grundy Center, the town over, I started an initiative called Need One, Take One.
Mhm.
And I had an experience with a middle grade kiddo. I was working a Saturday and he kept holding his tummy. And I thought, oh no, I'm going to have to play janitor librarian
Yeah.
today. Please, please,
Sure.
please don't. Right. And it ended up being a heartbreaking story. The boy had said, oh, no, no, it's fine. I just haven't eaten since yesterday and I won't get to eat till tomorrow. And I have a trick. If I drink more water, my tummy won't hurt.
Yeah.
And I thought, what?
Yeah.
And he was just laying out his reality.
Sure.
And I went, never. I had goldfish and grapes in my snack pack.
Hmm.
And I just remember handing this young man, I said, "Here, I don't like these anyways. Just take my goldfish and my goldfish and my grapes."
Yeah.
And um he did. And I went home and I told my husband, I said, "We have to do something." And so I had come back to the library and talked to the director, and she said, "Okay, if you can fund it, it can't be library funded, then you
Yep.
can do this." So turns out once you have an idea, the right people come into place, and we now have need one, take one food and hygiene supplies
Yeah.
discreetly for free for anybody in all libraries in our county.
Yeah.
So how did that get me to Community Bridges?
Yeah.
Well, somebody from the Community Development Board had come into the library on my second day of
Hmm.
work and said, "Hey," and showed me a picture of the basket I had made at the other library and said, "Do you think you can incorporate this in our library?"
Yeah.
Like, I do know a thing about it. So um, we started with that. And then she said, "Hey, you know, would you like to come onto the community development board and help with some other things that could help community take care of community?" And I said,
Yeah.
"Yes." So I did get there, and I did have, when they asked to vote me in as a board member, they're like, all in good fun, but they're like, "What is the librarian going to do? Bring us books for story time during our
Yeah.
meetings?"
Yep. Yep.
And I laughed it off and said, "Well, I can do that. I have some great stories I could read aloud, and I'm great at voices. However, I also would love to help you um, to create a mutually beneficial relationship from the library and you. I want to bring patrons to your businesses. I
Yeah.
would love to be sponsored, have things sponsored to get your name out there. You need your name out there. You need people. I promise you, I'm going to have people."
Yeah.
And I'll get them to you. So, yeah, now years later, it just works so well.
It's great.
There are skills that the library has that they needed. And now I have a summer reading program that I didn't have to use any of my city funding because I work with a whole board. And I said, "Okay, I have all of these programs. Does anybody want to sponsor them?" And it was done at my 7 o'clock meeting.
Yeah.
So you have to get out there. You have to build these relationships. And you have to take a measurement. Is this mutually beneficial?
Yeah.
Is my time and what I'm bringing to the table helping them move them forward? And is it helping me move forward? Always measuring. I know that seems less warm fuzzy, but it's just practical.
Yeah.
I'm a,
That's
I love
marketing
people.
right there, right? Yeah. So
Yeah,
like
I love
very
engaging,
measured.
but
Yeah.
I have to have balance.
Yeah.
So,
That's great. Well, and I mean, again, thank you so much for sharing your story kind of on this. I think this is so helpful for anyone that's thinking about this. And I was just wondering, let's imagine that there's a library director out there, and they're thinking about kind of following in your footsteps here. They're thinking about doing something similar. Is there any advice you would give them, or is there anything that you would be like, "Wow, I would never do that again"? Anything you would like to share, kind of if somebody else was trying to double programming, get out there with community development boards, apply for grant funding, any of these things that you did to kind of have this, positive impact. Any advice or things to
start
stay away from?
today.
What's that?
There, start today. But also look at what you have. So I love people. And I'm always having to look and seek the value in what you have. So um, look at the team you have, look at their interests, because if they're doing something they love anyways, it's not begrudging work. If you have somebody who flushes red and stammers, and the idea of going in front of everybody just makes them want to go in a hole,
Yeah,
don't ask them to do it.
yeah,
Have them be the ones who are helping you with that prep work. Have them be ones, you got to see the value in that, because more than likely, the person who loves to be up there engaging with people, they don't want to do the mindless tasks, the not mindless, the
yeah,
repetitive tasks. That's not going to give them joy and comfort. That's going to drive them nuts. So, first, do an assessment of the team that you have and the resources that you have. There are a lot of rural libraries that have one librarian. It's you looking in the mirror. That's all
Yep.
you got.
Yep.
And that's okay. You can still do this. All you need is one program per month. People are busy anyways. So doing one program per month per age group, that's 4 programs a month. If you
Yep.
are working by yourself, I really feel like you can do 4 programs per month. You've got 30 days to squeeze these in. And that would be fabulous because, again, people are busy and the months all run into each other and they will remember. As long as you make purposeful programming, they will remember it.
Yep.
And marketing. There's no point in figuring out how to make baby safe sand for dino toddler time, which is a lot of work and very messy.
Yeah.
And doing all of that, if you don't market it, build those relationships so that you have mutually beneficial relationships. So the schools get to know those administrative assistants. Those folks are fabulous. They have the keys to kids programming marketing because they have the emails to all the parents
Yeah.
ages zero of elementary, middle school, and high school. If you can get good in there, oh, so much easier. You
Yep.
just have to email them your program, they'll send it out. And so I know that every school has different rules of what they'll send out.
Sure.
So you can group it together. Because I did have at my past job, they only did so many outside emails a month.
Mhm.
So I partnered up with other entities. I thought, well,
Yeah.
the daycare wants to send this and the library. So we all came together and the oh, I forget, they were Chamber Main Street. They had events. So we all created it into one flyer and we would send it. Oh, I forgot to tell you, table tents are fabulous.
Table
So
tents. I don't know what that
businesses,
is, please. Yeah.
yeah, table tents. So create a tri-fold promotion of things going on at your library, QR codes.
Yeah.
So you create this tri-fold and it'll stand on a table. Restaurants and coffee shops
Oh, yeah.
love to support you in a way that doesn't cost money.
Yeah. Right.
They're already sponsoring the t-ball teams and the soccer teams.
Yes.
And if you come in and say, hey, I am looking for you to support the library, they're going to first go, which I
Yeah.
still think you should go in and say that. And then you go, just by allowing me to put these table tents on your tables for just 1 month, and then you rotate
Yeah.
throughout the town for every month, you have a different table tents at a different business because you're going to get different people. There are different people that go to Beans and Blooms coffee shop
Yep.
than go to our El Camino Mexican restaurant. And you
Yep.
want to be able to showcase all of them. So when you create those, make sure you're highlighting the things that if it's somebody's first time coming to, they're going to feel like they're not lost. They're going to feel like they belong there. They're going to feel like it's not overwhelming or anxiety ridden. So just put the stuff that once they walk in, they'll be greeted, not maybe something like if you had um, a Pepper. Was that, is that a card game? I think there's a complicated card game.
Oh,
Don't
okay.
put that on there
Yeah.
because they'll show up, they'll
They
feel
won't
us,
understand it. Yeah.
they won't understand it, and that will
Yeah.
be their first impression.
Yeah.
So put the things that are that can be for specific ages, but you can be the expert by coming the first time.
Well, and one thing that so I used to run a, co-working space kind of back in the day, about maybe 8 years ago or something like that. And one thing we always found that was interesting about events is that yes, you promote the event, but the event is also promotion, right? Because it brings people in that hadn't
Yes.
been there, and it's a reason for people to like bring their friends, bring their families. You know, oh, I've been telling you about this, and then it's a more awareness kind of on that side too. So it seems to have kind of that double impact of
Yes.
market the event, but then the event also gets people in the space, and it was also kind of a word of mouth, like marketing aspect to it, So,
And even if they don't come, as long as people are talking about it, they'll be at the next one. And give yourself grace, no matter how many boxes you check of their marketing plan. I
yeah,
say everyone should have a marketing plan, because if no one shows up,
Yeah.
you know you did the best that you can. It has nothing to do with the work you did. Where if you don't have one, it's like, well, could I have marketed more? No matter what you do, there will be somebody who an hour later or a day later goes, well, gosh, I wish I would have heard about that. Did you promote it at all?
Yeah.
I did. I really did.
Right. Well, and let me
And
just
just
ask you
give
this.
yourself grace.
Well, let me ask you this if you've got a little bit of time is, because some librarians and people that have library information science degrees and stuff, what I've seen is that a lot of them do not have a marketing background, and so kind of and in some of those degrees, it's not necessarily trained. I mean, it's talked about a little bit, but not to the degree of like somebody that has like an actual marketing background. When it comes to like they're trying to put together a marketing plan, right? Do you have any tips that you would give them, or is it, first look in the mirror and they're, like kind of what do you think from somebody that doesn't really have a marketing advocacy promotion plan for their library? Where would you have them start? What do you think?
First, look at the program you have. Who do you want there, and where are they at? If I am doing, I did a Mythbusters brunch, and it was actually sponsored by hospice. And here's the thing, if I put on a flyer, hospice program, no one will come,
Okay.
because anyone who needs the help isn't going to come because it's too vulnerable.
Yeah.
Anyone who could benefit from the information isn't going to come because they think they don't need it.
Hmm.
So figure out who you want there, and then figure out what do they want.
Hmm.
So what I did is I took that program and I called it Mythbusters Brunch. A presenter will come in and bust some myths that you thought you knew all along. Because the truth is, so for example, this one with hospice, it's not my grandma who truly needs to go to hospice. It's me.
Yeah.
It's the caretakers. It's not my mom. It's me. It's
Hmm.
That's who needs to go. And so I had put in there, short presentations so they knew it wasn't going to take a lot of their time. And come on over. You'll have, I made sure there was bagels on the flyer and fresh fruit on the flyer, because that was going to be the draw for a 10 a.m. program for people to pop by, learn a little something, and then grab a snack.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have to know who you want to market the program to,
Yep.
what would draw them in, and then how are you going to get to them? So for this one, that program, posting it on social media right now isn't going to get the audience that I really wanted,
Hmm.
which was a pretty big range. I wanted ages 40s to on up range. So I did put it on social media. I put it on my Instagram, on my Facebook, shared it at the local page, and then I pinned it to the top of my Facebook page so that no one had to struggle to search for it. It was just right there. And
Yep.
I had it on my website. Okay. I don't believe for that program that was the majority of where I got people.
Hmm.
That month, I had my table tents at the local coffee shop,
Hmm.
because that is where a lot of my group was.
Yep. Got it.
And I took my flyer and I printed 4 of them per page, and I gave them out during each book checkout. So I stuck them into the book so they used them as bookmarks, and they could see
Yeah.
that that date and time was there, and then they get a little hungry
Yeah.
when they're looking at my bagel
Oh,
and
this is
fruit.
something. Yeah.
So if you're just getting started, don't make generic flyers because you're not making generic programming. Make flyers that are for the audience that you want to attract. If you want your program to bring in, that 50, 60, 70 age group, don't put all the neon colors for a fantastic party time. That's
Yeah.
not going to draw them. It's going to be too over the top. But if you're trying to draw in those, 11 to 17 age group, that's when you pull the neon colors.
Yep.
But you need to tell them it's meant for them and exclusive. So really getting to know your groups, and it's going to be different in every town. You have to get out into your community. Go and deliver books at your local nursing home. Get to know the office people.
Yeah.
That's those are the relationships you build. And so then you can say, hey, we have this program going on. Your captive audience, your audience of people that live there that you see when you're doing lunch announcements, can you include that the library is having a lunch and learn this day? And they will because they have that relationship with you.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I appreciate what you're saying here too, which is that, sometimes people will think like, oh, this, if this is a library, we have patrons, and so we need to, like advocate or promote to patrons. But you're saying like, well, I mean, of course they're all patrons, but here's your, under fives and their parents, here's your five to tens. And really when you're thinking about programs, well, who specifically is it kind of targeted for? And it could maybe be in multiple age groups or multiple groups, but you kind of want to start with who's the program for. And then it's well, where are they most likely to see your message? And so then you're kind of marketing or promoting to the specific group that you're really trying to have for that program. But then, obviously within your library, you're having multiple different programs for the different groups of people that would benefit and use the library. Is that kind of what I'm hearing you say?
yes, absolutely.
Great.
You
Great.
got it.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, that's wonderful. Well, Lenah, I think that is a great place to end this interview. And I just want to say again, thank you so much. I mean, I think this has been very informative to anyone that is running a library, running a community space, trying to do kind of these programs and maybe having challenges, or they're thinking about doing programs or more programs, and they kind of want to have some positive impact in their community, in their town. So Lenah, just thank you so much. Any final words, any last thing you'd like to tell people that might see this that are kind of in that situation?
Just start with one, just
So,
one program,
yeah,
one flyer, build one relationship.
yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Well, Lenah, thank you so much, and yeah, have a great one. See ya.
Thank you.